This week on Testimony Tuesday, we have a testimony about God's intervention. Stay tuned. Welcome to Testimony Tuesday. I'm your host, Charles Gates Jr., and today we have on the show is Jonathan Geiger, my brother-in-law and friend. Hello, John. Welcome to the show.
Hello, Charles.
It's an honor to have you on the show. So, I understand you have a testimony to share that is very unique to your story. Can you start us off by telling us where you were at the time of this event?
Well, to begin off with, I was at work at Big Lots Distribution Center at the top of the Tremont Mountain there.
Okay.
I had to leave work early for some personal matters. I already had it set up and scheduled with my boss. And then I ended up leaving work to go home and do what I had to do. Before I left work, any other day I put my seatbelt on and I go home and drive normally. I take Rosh Creek Road, the back way from Big Lots Distribution Center to the Ravine truck stop.
Okay, yeah, the one by the truck stop with the Burger King.
Yeah. From there, I got in my truck that day. Like I said, any other day I normally toss my seatbelt on. It's a habit. Almost everybody has that habit of when they get into a vehicle, they toss their seatbelt on.
Yeah, I don't want to be put in a situation where you wish you had it on, you know. So what kind of truck was this? Was it a newer truck or an older one?
It was a 1985 Chevy Custom Deluxe C20 bonus cab. It had a bench seat in the front and a bench seat in the back, full box.
Nice.
It was what was classified as a larger truck.
Right.
Now, I had no real issues with it. I put a lot of time and effort into fixing it up. Mm-hmm. Something was telling me to not put my seatbelt on. I didn't even take no second thought to it that day at all.
So you just got in and like any other time and just instead of doing something that's so instilled in you to do from instinct, you just didn't. It's like, and it like subconsciously, like someone told you just don't put it on. And
the way I've looked at it since the accident is I've looked at it as a guardian angel was there with me, watching over me, and they kind of guided me into not putting it on. They made it slip my mind in a way. Because like I said before, any other time, the first thing I do when I get in the truck, seatbelt on, well, windows down, then seatbelt on. Because I had the old crank windows.
Well, the Bible says that the angel of the Lord encamps around those who will inherit righteousness. So you feel like that's what happened to you? Like an angel was camped around you, or?
Definitely. I mean, there was some angel watching over me. I mean, there had to have been someone watching over me. Okay. There's no doubt about it. It really isn't.
So, what happened after you left work to travel down Rosh Creek?
Well, I headed down Rosh Creek Road, and a vehicle ran me off the road.
Oh.
I almost hit a tree at that point, but I got back on the road.
So did they not see you? Or did they just swerve out and...
They were taking up the middle of the lane. It's not really that big of a road. There is enough space on Rosh Creek Road that two vehicles can fit side by side. Right. But most vehicles just drive up the center of that road because there's no paveway markings in it.
Convenience. But...
Yeah, and with the sharp turns that are on it, it's a little bit safer to take the middle of the road than not.
Right. So...
Now, after that, I got the truck back onto the road and under the control. Truck started fishtailing. It was swerving back and forth yet, and I was getting that under control. I was doing around 30, 35 miles an hour, according to the speedometer. I just got the truck under control. Then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, the truck yanks to the right.
Ooh.
And no sooner I feel it yanked to the right, I know what's going to happen. There's not much other space there. I mean, you got trees on this side, trees on the left-hand side of the road, and then basically a cliff and trees on the right-hand side.
So did it just do it at random? Do you think it might have hit something, or was it like the power steering just decided to like yank you?
Well, that's actually, I find that out a little bit later on in the story.
Okay.
But as it's going through, as it happens, the truck yanked to the right, and I felt the tires just picking up off the ground. It was a heavy truck.
It just lifted off the ground, and did you feel it?
I felt it picking up. And first instinct, I was always taught when you know that an accident's coming is to relax your body. Less injury happens if you relax compared to when you tense up. I ended up blacking out for a moment. I don't know exactly how long. All I know was, to me, it was like a few seconds. Because I ended up hitting the back of my head and busted it open. I needed staples in my head.
Did you crack your skull open, or was it just?
My skull was fractured.
Oh.
But
Painful. Yikes.
I didn't even feel it. I didn't know it was bleeding until I got to the hospital. But after that happened, I was laying over the back seat onto the rear bench seat.
Wow,
My
throwing you into the
leg
back seat?
was hanging up over the front seat, and my tip of my left foot's toes were kind of pinned under the steering wheel. Not much. I easily slid them out. But I slid my foot out from underneath the steering wheel, and then I turned off the ignition. First thing I was always taught also, turn off the ignition if you can, so that way no fire starts.
Hey, can you pull up the picture of the accident?
Now, when the accident happened, I ended up having to wind down the passenger window because I couldn't get the door or anything open because there was a telephone pole that fell down. I thought it was a telephone pole. Here it was a power pole. There's actually a difference. One just carries a current of electricity and it powered Big Lots distribution center. And then there's actually another separate line running from Big Lots itself towards Tremont itself.
Okay.
That is for the phone lines and all that.
So, was it hanging over the truck?
Part way, yes. The pole itself was an older pole. It was fairly rotted. Right after my accident, I climbed out of the passenger side window.
You climbed out of the passenger side window. Wow, imagine how much pain he had to have been in.
I actually didn't feel nothing.
That's probably a bad sign.
I didn't feel any of it, and I jumped down off the side of the truck, too.
Wow.
I was walking around looking for my cell phone to try and get a hold of somebody, mainly more so my family, because I knew once somebody else came along, and there was bound to be somebody else coming along,
Right.
that they were going to call 911. And once they call 911 and the ambulance and all get there, they don't let you look for anything. I have no numbers memorized. The convenience of a modern cell phone is all the numbers are in there. You don't remember any of them anymore. He ended up helping me look for my cell phone because I had to stop looking for it because I couldn't walk no more. That's why in the one photo you end up seeing me laying on the ground there is because my left leg wanted to go out to the left and I couldn't walk no more. At that point, the swelling and all was building up, and it looked like you took one of them big old softballs and tucked it up underneath my skin. On the right-hand side, not the left-hand side.
Probably looked like you had a tumor or something just growing out.
It literally looked like I had a softball under there. It's the best way to explain it. I mean...
That sounds painful.
It kind of was, but the adrenaline was still pumping.
Scary.
That's why I didn't feel
sure.
much anyway, is the adrenaline was pumping in my body because of the accident that happened.
Probably good. You might have passed out again from all that pain.
Once the adrenaline wore off, I felt the full force of it. But that's later in the story also.
Okay.
He ended up pulling a piece of the telephone pole out of the inside of the truck of the cab.
Whoa, so the power lines and stuff were hanging over a truck, and the telephone part of the telephone pole was inside the truck. That sounds like a death trap, like you escaped death only to fall into another trap laid for you. That is a very hard place to get out of, and like God gave you the strength, and like it's almost like He carried you out, like He gave you the strength and helped you get out of there. Like help carry you out of the passenger window, and like his wings were surrounding you from the electricity, and that's powerful. That's powerful. I'm sure a lot of people have can relate to that in their own walks where
There was no doubt about it. God or one of His angels were definitely there.
Oh.
I mean, throughout the whole process of the story, you've been paying attention, there's been one intervention after another. I mean, the lady that stopped and took the photo of me sitting outside, she wouldn't help me at all. She said that you're not supposed to help people that have been in accidents. He helped me up to the ambulance because they couldn't bring it down. The reason they couldn't bring it down was the power was still live. So I thank God that that gentleman was there. I actually thank God every day for him because he helped me more than what the other person that was there at the accident did. The other person just basically stood there and watched instead of trying to help in some way. Granted, he didn't move me or anything like that. I mean, I understand you're not supposed to move somebody after an accident.
Yeah, especially you could have a spinal injury and it could really hurt you.
But he helped me by trying to help me find my cell phone and going and helping me get up to the ambulance because I actually had to walk up to the ambulance. So I had my left arm around him, my right arm around the EMT, and I basically hopped on my right leg all the way up to the ambulance. And the ambulance was, I'd say maybe a block away is where they had to park. My journey in the ambulance itself, there were two EMTs in the back. I actually had to switch ambulances at one point.
Wow.
Because one ambulance didn't go all the way to Danville. That's where they ended up taking me. They gave me the choice of Hershey or Danville. I really don't care for Hershey too much, but that's another story.
Right.
So I chose Danville. I got in the ambulance. One EMT was a female EMT. Very nice lady. She helped me as I was in pain. They gave me like 3 tubes of morphine, I believe it was, in the ambulance itself, and I was squeezing her hand and nearly crushing her hand. I was in that much pain, but I was completely conscious throughout the whole thing. Pain, I have a high tolerance for pain too. That doesn't help none. So when I say I'm in pain, I'm actually in pain. Like right now, I'm walking around on a sprained ankle and I barely even feel it. But I get to the hospital. I'm trying to remember numbers so that way they can get a hold of somebody. While I'm in there, I go and they do this whole triage. There's like 20 doctors and nurses inside this room for the trauma center. They're checking me out. They strip me down so they can do all their examinations and see what's going on. I ended up having a cut right here on this arm. Wasn't even bleeding. It was fairly deep too. I believe they said it was like 3 or 4 millimeters deep.
Okay.
It was already wide open. You could see my muscle underneath it. Then they basically just, after they get me all closed up, stapled up, they take me to a room. I'm waiting there. Eventually, my wife shows up. But right before they let her back to see me, one of the doctors comes in. He takes a syringe that's about maybe a foot long. And what's a good example? It's about as round as a bottle of water. The needle on it has to be like 3-4 inches long. He comes in, sprays the side of my leg down with, it's like a freezing spray. It was more cold instead of numbing. And he sticks the needle from the left side of my knee all the way through to the right.
Ouch.
And pulls it out, and it is filled with blood and fluid and everything else. And it deflates the softball as I put it, underneath the side of my knee on the right-hand side
Okay.
there. They said that I was going to have surgery. The kicker of it is they gave me two options. Either I lose a leg because of the extent of the damage, or I get the surgery and possibly lose a leg later on, have knee transplants, or walk with a cane for the rest of my life.
Those not good choices.
Not really. But they're better than the alternative.
Yeah, most definitely.
If I would have been wearing my seatbelt on the alternative, I probably would not be here today.
Yeah, it would have been fatal.
Now, with the knee itself, I opted for the surgery to get the surgery done. Because the way my tibular bone, that's where most of the damage was, there was a lot of pitting on the tibular. The top of the tibular, if you look at an x-ray of it, looks like basically a marble sitting on top of my bone. And my top of my knee is balancing on top of that marble. Now, with that, there was also splintering. And instead of the bone breaking like a normal break across, it splintered downward. So it literally went down my tibular bone towards my ankle. And there were several splits like that. It wasn't just one in the middle or anything like that. It was a few slivers going this way, a few going that way.
Yeah, not the typical broken bone from falling down.
No. And they end up doing the surgery. I ended up having 6 screws and an L-shaped plate put into my knee. And that the L-shaped plate was to keep my knee from going out to the left, because after that I'd always want to go to the left. If you break your leg and it goes inward, it's a little bit easier of a break than when it's going outward. When it goes outward to the outside of your knee, it destroys structural integrity of your leg.
Right.
So you have a hard time balancing and putting weight on it and everything else. By this time after my surgery, police officers are coming in. Now, with the police officers, they're asking me what was going on and what happened. Was I drinking? They looked at the toxicology reports, everything. I was 100% okay. They said from their simulations, I had to be doing 70, 80 miles an hour to make that much damage. The issue with that is, if anyone knows about an older truck, they kind of take a while to catch up to speed. And if anybody's ever traveled Rosh Creek Road, they know that it's full of winds and turns. You can't get a truck like that up to 70, 80 miles an hour in the short distance where my accident happened.
Yeah.
I told them I was doing 30,
would.
35 at most, and they didn't want to hear it. So afterwards, they do their whole thing. I finally get out of the hospital, and I go to the garage where they're holding my truck. They looked over the truck. Here there was a vehicle malfunction with the truck. The rear axle, the truck had an optional dual axle. You could either have single wheels or dual wheels on it. And the passenger side rear seized up. Not to the point where it locked up completely, but enough that it yanked the truck to the right. That's what they determined caused the accident.
Okay.
They said that it could have happened at any time. It just happened to happen at that point in time. I never knew it was a dual axle, or else I would check the fluid in it. Throughout the recovery process, I had physical therapy a lot. I had to go to physical therapy more times than I can count. And it wasn't just once. I went to physical therapy for my leg. They sent me to another doctor to get cortisone shots in my knee to try and build up some kind of material in my knee. Didn't work. They went and sent me to another guy. He put a scope into my knee to see what was going on. It was really bad in there. They really couldn't do much to help. By this time, my medical ends up getting cut. And it gets cut because I was told to file for unemployment, so I had at least an income, and that was my job at the time, Big Lots, because they were holding my job for me as long as they could. They held it for, I believe, a year and a half, if I recall correctly, but I never could actually return. They didn't have nothing to accommodate me.
So it changed your whole financial situation.
And my whole life. I mean, I was a mountain climber and a hiker and everything else before that, and I can't really do too much of that anymore.
Yeah, I
I've
remember.
even gained weight because of it.
Yeah, I remember going up in the mountains with you a lot and finding trails and swimming in the creeks up in the mountains. And
But
completely changed that aspect of your life.
by the time I lose my medical, I'm finishing my third round of therapy, and I went to therapy for about 3-4 months at a shot. That was 2-3 times a week for at least an hour a day. You know, therapy people were nice. I mean, I'd love to go back there again. They're just wonderful people there compared to other therapy places. I've been to a few that not so nice. Thank God that they were understanding and willing to help me out. Eventually, I went back to Big Lots to try and find the gentleman that helped me. I could never find him. I don't even know his name. A few people said they know him, but don't remember his name either. So I kind of wish I would meet him, and hopefully he might see this, and I'd like to thank him personally for that. He
Maybe
helped a
he's
lot.
out there watching somewhere.
I'm hoping. But essentially, with my entire leg, I mean, yeah, now I walk with a cane. I have a limp. I can't do as much as what I used to. I have to wear a brace. But what helps is every day, every night, I pray. God, He gives me the strength to keep moving forward and keep moving on. I tough it out through a lot of pain throughout the day, just to be with my family and spend time with them and be around them. And to me, that is God's greatest reward, is still giving me time with my family.
Amen.
If it wouldn't been for His intervention in what happened with my accident, I literally wouldn't be here today. EMTs, firemen, even police officers say that there's no way I would have survived because the whole driver's side compartment was crushed in like a beer can.
Wow. Wow. Well, that's all the time we have on our show for today. God's grace is sufficient for you in times of weakness, because in times of weakness, His strength is made strong in you. We don't know why these things happen, but it really causes us to appreciate our moments moving forward after recovering from such a traumatic event. And I know that many of us, me included, have struggled through certain things in our lives where we didn't see any how we could have made it out alive, but God's intervention was right there to keep us by His side. Thank you for tuning in today. Look for us next week on Testimony Tuesday, hosted by Charles Gates Jr.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome, John. Thank you for being here.